So our new window strip is taped into place, and it's kind of really just adjusted more or less front to back. Now what we got to do is adjust it sort of top and bottom, and there's a little lip on the rubber part. Kind of just, you want it to just lap over the edge of the door panel. Now I'm just going to use a couple of these little pony clamps to hold it in place while I drill the holes, just so it doesn't move on me. And then just to fasten it, I'm using 5/32 aluminum pop rivets. And then drilling a corresponding 5/32 hole. Start right there. Now this window strip has an aluminum backing in there. It's rubber molded around an aluminum backing. So alright, I can feel that I'm all the way through. We'll just snug this down. Just like that. Alright. Then we got 4 more of these to do. I'm just putting 5 rivets in here. If you wanted to do more, you can. The only reason I'm doing 5 is because that's all the rivets that I have left. So the new window felt is down here. It's riveted in place. Next thing I'm going to do before I go and fit this back on the truck, because you do have to take it on and off several times, or really a number of times before it fits real well. This is what I learned when I was installing the driver's side of the truck. What we need to do is drill out the holes for these screws. Okay, these screws mount to this bracket. This bracket mounts to the metal door with these holes right here. These 2 screws go in on the top here into these little speed clips. Now, like I said, this mounts to the actual door. This mounts to the door panel, so when you go to pull on your door panel, pull your door to close it, you're not just pulling on the plastic and breaking the plastic. It's actually anchored to something metal, which is anchored to the door. Now, like I said, we got to take these screws out. This is how they ship them. They don't have the screws fully seated, and they're pretty long, and they got a real big fat washer on the end of them. So we'll take these out. Then we're going to flip the door panel over. Now you can see there's 3 screws back here. Now the padded armrest has a wood backing. It's wood wrapped in vinyl and a little bit of padding. So we're going to take these 3 screws out, and then we'll drill out. I'm not sure if it shows up on camera, but that's a hole right there. That's a hole right there for those 2 screws we just removed. They pass through and zip into that bracket. So we'll pull these 3 screws out, and then we'll drill out these 2 holes here in the plastic, and then the 2 holes that are in the armrest. So here's the armrest area without the padded armrest installed. This hole and this hole right here are the ones that we're going to drill out. Now this is just in the plastic, and I drilled these out to 1/4 inch on the driver's side door panel. This hole, and that hole, those for the 3 screws that hold the padded armrest in place. And like I said, it's just a wood backing with some vinyl material stapled to it. Now, these 2 holes, I'm going to drill these out to 3/16. As you saw earlier, the screws have a pretty substantial washer on there. That is at least 3/8 in diameter. So drilling those out to 3/16, so that's only half of 3/8. So we're not going to have any problems with the bolt just plunging right through there. So I'll get these drilled out, get this remounted, and then we'll go and try the door panel back on the door again. I have the bracket mounted to the door. There's just two little bolts, and there's some pre-threaded sort of captured nuts in the door itself. Just takes a 7/16 wrench to get them on there. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but really the reason that we drilled out those holes in the door panel was because on the driver's side, I actually had to relocate the 2 holes for the speed clips. I had to relocate them inwards about a ½ an inch. And likewise, I had to cut off a corresponding ½ inch of the outside of this bracket as well. So I wanted to do that. Like I said, you know, we're going to have this door panel on and off several times, and I'm trying to reduce the number of times that we have to do that. Every time you do that, you sort of weaken the lip of the door panel, and because it's all plastic, and you know, it is kind of a cheap piece, but nonetheless it still costs money, and I'd rather not break it. So this is in place. We'll get the door panel installed. We'll check and see if we need to do the same thing on this side to re-drill these holes and relocate these speed clips. We'll see if we need to do that on this side, and then move on. So everything's pretty well lined up how I want it. It's again, it's not perfect. It would take a lot of time to make it perfect, but it is symmetrical with the other side of the truck, with the driver's side door panel. So, like I said, and I've noticed that I am going to have to do the same thing to that bracket that I did on the driver's side, which is re-drill those holes and cut that bracket off just a touch. So, I've got the door panel where I want it. I don't have a tool long enough to reach in there and scratch a hole, so I'm just going to use a drill bit. Stick it in there, just enough to scratch it where we need it to be. Now this drill bit was going in at a little bit of an angle, so when I get all this off and get the bracket off, I'm going to have to reposition my hole just a little bit, but it's close enough to where I need it to be. So I have the bracket cut, drilled, and bolted back into place, and there's something that I literally just noticed about this door, and that is it does not have the correct mounting locations for the new door panel. On the other door, now both of these doors, both my driver and passenger side doors, are reproductions. They're overseas Chinese repops, and they're okay, but they're not great. Just like everything else that kind of comes out of China, it's okay, but it's not great. The other door, even though it is a repop, still had the correct slots, and the slots look just like these, except they're lower. There's 3 of them. There's one here directly below this one, below that one, and below that one. Over here, there's a small square hole that you put one of those plastic plugs in. I forget what they're called, but it's a square plastic plug. Pops into place, just like you put on a license plate or something like that. Pops into place, and then your door panel has screws that go into those little plastic plugs, and it holds everything in place. Now, at first I was kind of upset about that, and now I'm thinking it's really not that big a deal. One, on the driver's side door panel, the holes were, even though they were there, they really weren't in the correct place. Either the holes in the door weren't in the correct place, or the mounting holes in the door panel were not in the correct location. So, I think this is actually a good thing, because I have little square little push plug things for the screws, and I have enough. I have 4. I only need 4. One here, 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 and here. I have enough. And on the other door, like I said, they weren't in the right place. They were actually a little bit high from where they needed to be, so I had to kind of wallow out those holes a little bit to get everything to kind of work right. And even then, it's not perfect. This way, I can just transfer punch the holes in the door panel to the door and actually put those plugs where they need to be exactly. Now, I thought about doing that on the other door, but it really, they were not off enough that I could get something in there that would actually hold. So, that's just one thing I wanted to point out. In this case, I actually think it's a little bit of a blessing. So we'll get the door panel mounted in place, and then we'll transfer drill those 4 holes and get that in place, and we're just about finished with this project.